The Parramatta Female Factory and Institutions Precinct is one of Australia's great landscapes of memory, conscience and survival. The buildings and spaces have World Heritage value, regardless of internal or external government opinions. This has been recognised by over 31,000 Australians already through earlier petitions. The site is one of the most significant women's sites in Australia and contains the women's history, that of children and of the men who built the female factory. It truly is a place for all Australians. This is not a partisan issue. It is a national responsibility. Research has revealed that 1 in 7 Australians are descendants of women who were at the Parramatta Female Factory. This video records the handing over of petitions that call upon federal and state members of Parliament to continue the World Heritage pathway with a focus on the Parramatta Female Factory and Institutions Precinct.
So welcome to This is a Parramatta Female Factory Friends event. I'm Gay Hendrickson, I'm President of the Parramatta Female Factory Friends, and with me are members of the committee who've worked long and hard with me in saving this internationally significant site, the Parramatta Female Factory and Institutions Precinct. The Friends have been advocating for preservation, access and a museum for the site for 16 years. And just before I go further, can I just ask the committee to put their hands up, just because they work so hard, you know, and their families and their friends have to listen to all of that as well. You never do, I have to say this, my brother had this great saying, and I think he got it from Desmond Tutu: we may not have it all together, but together we've got it all. And that's what today is about as well. Okay, joining us today also is Judy Mundy. Where are you, Judy? Over there. And with her, with Jack Mundy, Clelia and John Kosh have been there right from the beginning. The green banners understood straight away and were our first friends. And there are many of you I can see here today that have been here from virtually the beginning as well. We've also been lucky from the beginning of our advocacy to have support from particular members of Parliament, and it seems to be a beautiful pattern with the Parramatta, most of the Parramatta members. And today we've got the wonderful Donna Davis and the wonderful Andrew Charlton, who really are advocating what they can, and from our perspective with the factory, are honouring their words and following through, and they're with us for that journey till we get what that factory needs. So thank you both for coming and supporting us in all those ways. Okay. So we'll get those perspectives as well. So why have we gathered here today and why the petitions? Because we believe that women and children's history counts. Their lives count. Everyone has a story that's worth remembering. The Parramatta Female Factory is a foundational part of our history and is the site of thousands of voices. A place of protest, a place of survival, a place where so many firsts in Australia occurred. It's a site of international and national and local significance. I think that's worth us all remembering. And yet, unlike places like Hyde Park Barracks or Port Arthur, the site is not internationally listed, no World Heritage. Shame, it's shame, yes, I agree with you. Shame, an absolute travesty. Thank you for your support in that. No ongoing management. It's a project. It's a lovely little project. No ongoing. There's some site maintenance, and that puts a lot of stress on the very few people who are there. There's been a lot of secondments, and all those secondments are finishing. So what next? You know, would this happen to our brother site? So why should it happen to the sister site? Yep. So no ongoing management, no museum.
Shame!
Absolute shame. Thank you. It is, because with the museum we could actually connect with those stories, and it is all our stories. No ongoing funding. They've got funding, project funding. That's a shame too. Okay, so Just to give you a little bit of background, the Parramatta Female Factory Friends submitted a successful application for national listing, so it has national protection. We've previously gathered nearly 30,000 petitions, and so they're nearly 30,000 voices. Within 2.5 weeks, we've got another 3,300 voices, and it's getting larger every day, every day. So thank you, every one of you and everyone you talk to, I think is just, thank you. We do it together. Okay, our advocacy to state and federal parliament led to a World Heritage application, and it received a tentative list. But when an assessment happened by ICOMOS, who is the advisory body for UNESCO for World Heritage, found it wanting, there was a stop. So we know that there are 3 options that the government body can take that are still on the table, and they can keep following with the World Heritage. You make up your own mind where it stopped. I think that when we look at how much development is going on at Parramatta, I think that'll give you one clue why it stopped. Why the development right at North Parramatta, an unspecified number of stories on a building that's literally in the green space in front of the factory.
Shame.
Absolute shame. Thank you. I share your feelings about that. It's really, really important that that sort of thing doesn't happen. But we have been lucky. We have representatives in Parliament who are standing here today who are happy to follow through with what they see is something that those 30,000 voices and your voices have. And for me, the answer is really that we cannot abandon this most significant site, this oldest surviving built structure in Australia that relates specifically to the women's story. We have, if we think about it, I'd like to just take a moment. Many of you are holding up names of those women, and if I can say, you know, let's have them all standing here in front of us. If the 9-year-old Mauritian Constance, the little slave girl, our youngest female convict, and that's the other one who came out, Elizabeth. So Constance is being held up there. What would you say to a 9-year-old who's been convicted and sent to the female factory? Would you tell her story does not count? No. What about Mary Ann Hamilton, who died of starvation and poor treatment? If she was standing here, would you say her life doesn't count?
No.
No, of course not. What about Mary Hindle, who just couldn't cope, and the hand that was dealt her, and she committed suicide? Would we say her life doesn't count? No. Or Elizabeth Browning Owen, who tried so hard to keep her 4 children together, and they were taken away at the factory. We can't say hers doesn't count, can we? No. So there's hundreds of women who actually were part of the 5 riots, and the first one being our first workers' action and fight for human rights. Go the women. Go the women. I mean, if you think at that time, of 5 riots, we just go, oh yes. But at that stage, they could have been maimed and killed without any retribution. So every time they stand up for something that they're believing in the factory, that is telling you that we don't care anymore. We can't deal with it this way. So, you know, I think that survival and that voice is what needs to come through. I think that, you know, to understand our history, to make the best choices, we need to be connected to these special places and stories. They belong to us. They don't belong to bureaucrats. They don't belong to people who think they're not important. They belong to us.
They're the mothers of the nation.
Thank you, Kate. They're the mothers of the nation. Yes, I'm 100% with you.
Her story matters.
Her story matters. Thank you. The mothers, the daughters, the sisters, you know, the cousins, the aunts, you know, they made what we are. But, you know, to my mind, whether you came 5 minutes ago or have been here since deep history, they really are a part of our story. And I look at some of the stories of the women, and it could be a recent refugee story, you know, or it could be a story of a single mother who's going through a really difficult time or a difficult family situation. Those stories are our stories in so many ways. Now, This is why we are petitioning the state and federal government to step up and act, to recognise the women's voices and respect our heritage at the Parramatta Female Factory with proper custodial care. Finishing the World Heritage process. You don't stop part way through. You don't. And making it a museum with funding. Now, our wonderful patrons, Tom and Meg Keneally, could not make it here today, but they sent a few words, and they have been fabulous support too. So Tom said, the significance of the Parramatta Female Factory site stretches back millennia, from the Parramatta to the women incarcerated there. It's an Australian crucible where the foremothers of many Australians first touched their feet to these shores, and a site which testifies to female strength. World Heritage listing is crucial to its continued protection and interpretation. So one of our premier writers and thinkers, that's his view. Go Tom. Go Tom. Okay. I would now like to, I'm sure you've had enough of hearing from me, I'd now like to introduce Judy Mundy, who has been a friend of the Friends for a very long time, and she has a few words to say as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. I just want to acknowledge, make an acknowledgement of country to start. We meet on the land of the Parramatta people, and I pay respect to their elders and their present leaders. Otherwise, I'm proud to be here to speak. Firstly, I want to pay tribute to and congratulate the Friends of the Female Factory, who've long campaigned to protect this important part of our colonial era heritage, and who've been seeking to have it World Heritage listed to afford greater protection and ongoing protection. The Female Factory is part of and situated in one of the most important colonial precincts in Australia. It's a landmark, of course, on the Parramatta River. It became home to thousands of convict women in the 1800s who were incarcerated here to work. This is not the first time that community members have sought to protect and preserve an important historical area. In the 1970s, a campaign to save the historic Rocks area of Sydney was finally successful. The government of the day was proposing to demolish this earliest part of European Australia to replace it with high-rise concrete and glass commercial buildings.
Shame.
The residents, many of whose families had lived there for generations, were to lose their homes. They sought the support and assistance of the Builders Labourers Federation. That union had previously supported progressive community action to prevent destruction of bushland and parkland. The union agreed to place a green ban on the Rocks area, thus preventing the proposed demolition of that most historic precinct. No one now would suggest demolishing the Rocks. Nor should the Female Factory or its surrounds become victim to any plan that replaces or degrades that important part of our heritage. The Friends of the Female Factory and many thousands of people who've signed their petition over a period of time seek ongoing protection for the site, the buffer zone, the sight lines, heritage landscape, curtilage and surrounding setting. To achieve this, they seek custodianship. Here at Parramatta, we've got Elizabeth Farm, now, deservedly, preserved for posterity as a museum. It's in the custodianship of the Museums of History, used to be called the Historic Houses Trust, but now the Museums of Sydney. It was home to Elizabeth and John MacArthur, the John MacArthur, who on the back of the sheep became the wealthiest man in the colony. I'm going somewhere with this. We also have Old Government House here at Parramatta, also deservedly preserved for posterity. It was designed by former convict Francis Greenway, as was the Female Factory. It was built, that is, Old Government House, was built in 1820, just 1 year before the Female Factory, which opened in 1821. Old Government House was used by 10 colonial governors as a country residence. Now, it's now in the hands of the custodianship of the National Trust of Australia, the New South Wales branch. The female factory was not established for the then wealthiest gentleman in the colony and his family, nor was it established to be enjoyed by vice-regal gentlemen as a country residence. Rather, it was for very poor women, women convicts, somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 of whom passed through its unwelcoming portals. They were put to work, making yarn and weaving material and breaking rocks to be used to make roads. The factory was also, euphemistically, a marriage bureau where men could go and seek a wife. Many children were born as a result of those relationships, and many of the women therefore became the mothers, grandmothers and great-grandmothers of future generations of Australians. They ought not be forgotten. As a museum placed in the custodianship of an appropriate body, such as the Museums of History, the female factory would have ongoing protection. This would be further enhanced by World Heritage listing, and I commend efforts to achieve such a listing. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. I think that really says it all, but I'm sure there's a little bit more that we can. Yeah. Oh no. It's interesting seeing different perspectives, because it doesn't matter which way you look at the factory, there is something critically important to our history that relates to that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce Dr. Andrew Charlton, the federal member for Parramatta, who I have to say in the first week of him being in office started doing work for saving the factories. So, Andrew, if you could come and say a few words.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all in your resplendent purple, holding up the memories of Australian women who were in this factory and whose memories we are here to protect today. I want to acknowledge the Parramatta people of the Darug Nation, whose continuing connection to the land is important and whose history in Parramatta we also respect and also need to work hard to protect. Friends, Parramatta's history matters. Yes. Women's history matters. Yes. And all of the stories, the story of Charlotte and Jane and Mary and Elizabeth and Catherine and Sarah and Anne, these stories matter and they need to be protected. Judy spoke about the campaign in the Rocks, the incredible vision and fight that community organisations showed to protect that part of Sydney's heritage. Well, this is our Rocks here in Parramatta. Yes. And we need that same fight and that same spirit to protect it. This has been a long journey, and I want to acknowledge all of you, all of the people who have been on that journey for a long time, fighting not just this year, not just last year, but over such a long period of time to protect Parramatta's heritage. I acknowledge the Parramatta Female Factory Friends. I acknowledge so many people in this group who have fought not just for this site, but for so many other parts of Parramatta's heritage. I see Suzette here, who's been a great campaigner on so much of Parramatta's heritage, and many other people. This journey for me started in 2022, when, as part of the election in 2022, I made a commitment. And we made a commitment to seek World Heritage listing of the female factory. In 2023, we took the next step in that commitment, which is to seek funding through the federal budget to provide the resources necessary to pursue that commitment. And that funding was delivered in the 2023 budget. Now, my message today is we are on that journey and we cannot abandon it. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed other than to make this site even more significant. And I think we should call out what we're really dealing with here. We're dealing with the desires of developers to continually build over important sites that make our city great. And we're not just fighting that on this site. We have been fighting that in relation to the Kirtledge and sight lines around Old Government House. And we had a win recently through the EPBC that stopped some of that development. We are fighting that same instinct on the other side of Parramatta, where we have 3 of Australia's oldest homes: Experiment, Farm Cottage, Hambledon Cottage, and Elizabeth Farm. And yeah, Elizabeth Farm was one of the first land grants in Australia. It was the birthplace of the merino wool industry. And John MacArthur was spending most of that time back in England, while Elizabeth was actually sorting out the first large corporation in Australia's history, building that industry. A piece of our history which is often forgotten. Now, we have another petition going over on that side of Parramatta, one where we have a similar amount of community enthusiasm to protect those, and I'm really happy that we've taken an important step, and the National Heritage listing of that precinct is moving forward. So these fights are important to our city. I don't say that to take away anything from housing. It's important that we get new housing. That is an essential part of our city, of our country. But do you know what the #1 local government area for new housing is in New South Wales? #1? Parramatta. And you know what? There are lots of sites where we can put new housing in Parramatta. I'm not against new housing in Parramatta. It's important that we have that, and there's a very big proposal on Westmead South. We've got a lot of new towers here in the CBD. There's a big proposal up there on Church Street. Lots of opportunity for new housing. We welcome that. And, we are the #1 provider of new housing of any single LGA in New South Wales. But we don't just want to be a big city. We want to be a city that remembers its past, that has a soul, that has culture, that has history. That's what makes a city great, not the size of its skyscrapers or the number of people you can jam into it. And if we want to have a great city, that means having the culture, the history, and the institutions that make it great. And that's why I'm so attracted to the vision for the Female Factory and its surrounds. To be a place that the people of Parramatta can go, people from around Australia and around the world can go to celebrate our history, can go and be amongst a living museum that tells the story of these women, where people can go and celebrate our history, where it can be a place at the heart of our city. I think the precinct that we have in Parramatta, if you put it all together, Government House, the Female Factory, to the park, that to me is every bit as special as Port Arthur in Tasmania. Every bit as significant. And it could be everything as big a draw card as that is to Tasmania, attracting tourists and creating business and employment and art. That is an incredible vision that I know many people here have in their sights. We can't lose sight of that vision. We can't let go of that vision just to plonk a little bit of housing here, there, or everywhere. We need to protect that vision and we need to fight for it. So thank you for your fight. Thank you for the courage that you've shown, the persistence that you've shown to protect this site and to make it what we all want it to be. A great part of our city, a great asset for Australia, and a great testament to the memory of the women who we're here to recognise today. Thanks very much.
Thank Thank you, Andrew. A little aside, there were factory women at Elizabeth Farm as well, so the factory women are everywhere. And I bet you some of them work with the sheep. But they're not only rousing, but, you know, when you're a person of your word, the fact that you're following through, fabulous, and thank you for that. And another person who is true to her word too is Donna Davis, who in different ways has been part of the factory journey and fight since we started. So people don't really know that. They think of it just when she was mayor, or just when she was, you know, when she's in her current role. So I'm really pleased that you're here, Donna, as well.
Thank you, Gay, and thank you, Andrew, for your words. And of course to Judy for being here today. Last time I saw Judy, we were on the Jack Mundy ferry a couple of months ago, and it was a wonderful day, beautiful day, and a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to, to celebrate Jack, and for everybody now to be able to have a journey on that ferry along the Parramatta River. So seek that out when you have the opportunity, because it's wonderful to be able to remember Jack and all that he contributed to our city, and right along that river, you know, from Hunters Hill to the Rocks and down here in Parramatta. I too would like to acknowledge that we're on the lands of the Burramattagal people, and this is their meeting place. This is actually where the Burramattagal used to meet, on the high embankment looking down to the river. And as you know, we have the circle here that is where we have tried to replicate some of that traditional meeting place. So I urge you to always think of that when you come into the square, because we tried to ensure that people continue to meet here and to continue that story of the Burramattagal people. Thank you, Gay, for your kind words, because as you said, women and children's stories count. And it's thanks to an incredible display of community advocacy that we have here today and that we have had over decades, that we have managed to achieve what we have so far down at the Parramatta Female Factory and Institutions Precinct. From the day that I met Gay when she walked through the door of Tanya Gadiel's office in, I think it was 2007, because of her concerns about New South Wales Health at the time, they had plans to do some quite damaging works to the third-class quarters, and I didn't even know where the female factory was, which I'm sure there are many of you here today, back then, 20 years ago, were not as familiar with what the history of that site was. We knew it as Cumberland Hospital, but we weren't so familiar with all of its incredible stories. And from that time, I developed a friendship with Gay and with others of you that are here today, and a relationship to be able to support you in the different roles that I've had. First, just as all of us are, as local concerned residents, but then fortunately to be in a position where I've been able to continue those conversations on as an elected representative. And there's been some really powerful and successful moments in that time. You know, the joy of seeing that National Heritage listing and all of the work that you achieved in doing that. Now, I remember that the seeing you, so many of you that are here today, no matter what the occasion in Parramatta, didn't have to be a history-related or heritage-related event, but you were there with those petitions, making sure that you got those numbers. And then, of course, COVID hit, and you still continued. And regardless, even though Julie couldn't be down there in Canberra, she made sure that that petition was presented and that it was read in Parliament. And it was another proud moment when I was able to help her with that speech that we were able to get Susan Templeman to actually present. And hopefully that will be repeated soon when Andrew has the petition for the National Heritage listing for Elizabeth Farm, Experiment Farm and Hambledon Cottage, so that we can continue to have a strong number of National Heritage protected sites in Parramatta. How and why Elizabeth Farm is not already on the National Heritage listing is beyond me. It's something that we picked up, and Suzette and I have, talked about this for a long time, and it's wonderful now that the community, along with Andrew, have got carriage of that project, and I look forward to that. But it's that doggedness and determination that Gay showed right back then in 2007 that is bringing you here today. It's not just the Parramatta Female Factory friends, it's North Parramatta Residents Action Group, and I can see founding members here. It's people like Phil Bradley, who in his role on NPRAG, but also as a former councillor and as a strong, committed local member of the Greens. It's about the Parramatta National Trust, the work that they do as a local branch, and the work that the Parramatta and District Historical Society do as a local presence here. It's all of those different community-based advocacy groups that come together and have brought a voice to this site, because her story does matter, and her story is what is missing in so many of the archives that we have over here in 5, where we have the Heritage Room. The stories of people, as Andrew was quoting here before, like Jane, like Charlotte, like Emma, like Maria and Julia. Now, they are the stories that from that time when they came here as convict women, or they were born into that factory, right through to the stories of women across the whole 60,000 years of living on this nation. It's important that they are told and they are understood and that their contribution is made. Just last year, we celebrated 100 years since the first parliamentarian that was a woman was elected into the New South Wales Parliament. And as Mike Stanley can attest. That goes to show that, over that 100 years, it took so long. It took the first 100 plus of European settlement before we even had a woman's voice in the New South Wales Parliament, and now we've gone on to have had 100. But that in itself shows the importance of women's stories and women's contributions, and why what you're doing as advocates is so powerful. Because this site down at the Female Factory is not just about the bricks and mortar, it's about the stories that have connection for over 60,000 years. It's about connection to the river, about connection to the lands that surround it. And that is why I am also seeking to expand Parramatta Park, to add the protection that we have in Parramatta Park to those lands and those waterways right across to the northern side of the Parramatta River. When Julie Owens secured National Heritage for this site, it added a powerful level of protection, and I thank you again for your continued push for the World Heritage, as it demonstrates a commitment of the community to want even more for this site, to tell even more people. We know that there are so many incredible sites right across the world that are powerful tourism meccas because of the status that they have from their UNESCO World Heritage. And I appreciate that that is what you are wanting to bring here to Parramatta. And there are many ways that we are talking about what we can do, things that we have brainstormed amongst us in terms of promoting Parramatta. And as we look, you might think that this is got no connection, but it's very important. With an airport about to open in October, we will be an even bigger tourist destination than we could ever have imagined. And people want to have a range of opportunities when they come to visit Parramatta. They want not just to come to the sporting and the cultural events, but they want to get down into the nitty-gritty and understand where this city came from. And it's through the protection of sites like the Female Factory, it's through telling the stories of that site that we will be able to connect those people to the past of Parramatta. Andrew and I made a commitment together in 2022 and 23 to secure funding for the World Heritage application. And it's really pleasing to hear from Andrew today that as a member of the government who are the ultimate decision makers over World Heritage, that he will continue to work, as I will with him, to support the community with your endeavours. Heritage in Parramatta has been under threat for too long. And right now, the City of Parramatta is reviewing its heritage listings right across the local government area. And this is a time that, we all need to be vigilant. We all need to be very, very careful about what is being decided about those heritage strategies and those heritage reviews, because it's not, while we've got our eye on the prize of Female Factory and Institutions Precinct, we've got South Parramatta's heritage, we've got Harris Park, we have North Parramatta, we have the CBD as well, and we've got other little pockets right across the local government area that need our focus. And I really do urge you to also remember the connection that they have to this place and, of course, to the Female Factory, as so many of those sites do. We are really lucky to have the protection that we have with the National Heritage Listing. I also am very aware of the importance of a governance structure, and I know that Gay touched on that today. I am one of those people that continues to chip away until people don't want to open their door and I have to put a foot in it, and that's what I do, to have those conversations with the relevant ministers. We need a governance structure that supports the Female Factory and Institutions Precinct, but also other aspects of that entire Cumberland site. We need that to be able to ensure that it has the protections into the future, but it also has the funding, because without the funding, we can't ensure that those buildings are kept secure and accessible, and that we can open them up to a potential museum in the future, which is also something that I'm very passionate and putting my foot in the door about very, 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 very often. So thank you so much for being here today, for being here not only today but every day to continue this fight. It is something that I know has taken up so many hours and so much conversation with many of you, and it is about having those conversations that will continue to build that support outside of this circle of friends that are here today. Because the more people that know and understand the significance of the women's stories of the Female Factory and Institutions Precinct, the more hope we have of being able to achieve all of those goals that we want to achieve. So thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you so much, Donna, for that, and for everything that you do as well. Just as two asides, the Parramatta Female Factory predates all but 3 of the current Convict World Heritage sites, so predates all but 3. And also, just a little aside too, Parramatta Council was the first council to actually give vote to women in the 1860s. Might have been a mistake that they did it. Okay, what I'm going to do now is read just a section of the petition, and then I'm going to ask our committee, members of our committee, to hand it over. And if I could ask committee members to just come up here too and share in that event. Kevin, if I could there. Thank you. Okay. You can see the fullest part of the petition online when you show your friends, neighbours and family where to sign. But I'll just to summarise that, we are petitioning both the state and the federal government to urgently take the following action: to continue the World Heritage Pathway with a focus on the Parramatta Female Factory. This is to include updated and reframed submission for World Heritage application. You have community support for that at every stage. The second thing, prepare a stronger expert-led World Heritage strategy. So continue the work that's started, finish the job. The third one is acknowledged through the listing, commit to the implementation of custodianship for the site, so proper management of the site. You know, we're not asking for any more or any less than say what Hyde Park Barrack gets or Port Arthur. You know, we just want equity for the women's voice again. And yes, all of that. And respect for the site to be managed as a museum by heritage specialists who know how to do museums. So that's a part of it. And I will hand this over, and then I will ask the two members to receive them and perhaps show them to you so you can see what's involved. So